I don't want to be accused. Somebody forgot to take this from me. Now, apparently someone has been listening to me too. It's you. All right, okay.
Yeah, I don't have, I'll ask it.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The head of organizing of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, is here. He presented the discussion document yesterday. And we thought we should give you an opportunity just to engage on issues that he presented at the plenary with Fikile. Max?
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen of the fourth estate in the era of the Industrial Revolution. The National Policy Conference is a structural convocation of the African National Congress, whose principal aim are to take the ANC into a garage for service maintenance, so to say. The intention is to oil the ANC so that it operates its engines and other components optimally. We do this under the NPC so that all that preoccupy us is only policy architecture of the organization. This is where we introspect our final reports to the branches, will be by the branches. The report recommendations are not binding, just a recommendation that must be taken extremely serious and to be endorsed by the National Conference in December. On organizational renewal and design, the scene we went out to introduce was first and foremost the question of knowing what we are, who are we, and where we come from. We believe you first have to know who you are before you can begin to renew and design. There must be an accurate understanding of self first. This therefore includes looking at own policies of the past and at the genesis of the ANC to its middle age and up to here. We constructed the scene from consideration and consultation of the following primary sources: the 53rd Conference, previous National General Council, organization building discussion in 2016, discussion paper on organizational renewal. In our presentation, we wanted to achieve open discussion, open debate, and thought-provoking teas. For there to be an open debate, there must be deliberate openness, frankness, no holds barred approach from the scene setter. In this case, myself with the privilege of being the head of organizing. The ANC is the oldest liberation movement and political party in Africa that is still in existence. In the past 6 decades, at least in President Oliver Tambo, because of his rare leadership, we inherited a reservoir of unmatched political analysis within and without, inward and outward the movement's environment. We visited this reservoir and sharply raised issues at the National Policy Conference, displaying that the ANC has been there and done that before. As a living organization, we find that we will have challenges and crises which are a normality in the course of natural political circumstances. Where a difference is that we are now in government and are given a mandate by our people to perform. The central thesis of our analysis is that The subjective weaknesses of our movement are not unrelated to the influence of neoliberal ideological paradigm. The cumulative impact of all these weaknesses is the silent shift from transformative politics to palace politics, wherein internal strife and factional battles over power and resources define the political life of the movement in the South African context. Neoliberalism sought to weaken both the ANC's progressive outlook and the capacity of the developmental state to carry out a thoroughgoing transformation agenda. Having accepted that neoliberalism policies sought to weaken the ANC, objective conditions of a neoliberalized democracy and incumbency have given birth to new subjective weaknesses on the part of the ANC as the leader of the state and society in general. One, demobilization of the masses, corruption and sense of incumbency, institutionalized factionalism, ill-discipline and disunity, fueled and inspired by battles over the control of state power and resources, the danger of using state institutions to settle inner-party differences, the danger of neglecting cadre policy, lack of capacity and capability to implement policies, the danger of gatekeeping and bulk buying of membership, divisive slate electoral politics, wedge drivers, bulk buying of membership, the danger of character and political assassination, and the danger of ideological degeneration, which will mean that even when we analyze the economy in terms of ownership patterns and the social stratification of our society, we will deliberately degenerate to the point of ignoring the fact that, or suffer from amnesia, stroke inertia, in relation to those who own the means of production. Because our understanding of class is that class is defined against the means of production in terms of those who own and who stand to benefit. President Oliver Tambo taught us to forever be conscious to the susceptibilities of some amongst the movement becoming wedge drivers. And we made a point about that and quoted Oliver Tambo at length, which I will not bore you about that in this press conference. And proposed framework for organizational renewal and design, we argue that the ANC remains the leader in the process for social change as demonstrated by our delivery since 1994. That said, the ANC must retain its dual character as a liberation movement and a political party. We propose a maximum target of 65% National Executive Committee members be allowed to serve in the country's cabinet. This institutional arrangement will allow the organization to have an objective view and influence on developments in government, civil society, the economy, and international arena. The organization can intervene strategically to any challenges. This should allow the NEC to be a balanced mix of cadres in government and those engaged in civil society and business and other spheres of influence within society. The resolution on the establishment of the revolutionary Electoral Commission must be invoked and implemented. This process must be guided by through the eye of the needle, enforcement by the Revolutionary Council. The Revolutionary Council will be elected among the best in the ANC, not those who have retired themselves to the point in which they are not interested to stand for leadership, not necessarily by age. Those who've got no interest to stand for leadership. And the Revolutionary Political Council is going to help us exercise the tendency of factionalism and allow leadership of the ANC to be discussed in the open, but over and above that, to entrench through the eye of the needle. We are actually at the present moment talking through the eye of the needle, but the eye of the needle is not enforced. But the Revolutionary Council will ensure that the eye of the needle is enforced and that those who are elected to occupy higher leadership positions in the movement have passed the test of time in terms of impeccable credentials to lead the African National Congress. The ANC nomination and election processes, we propose that they must be reviewed to allow for open contestation with provisions for membership to engage the candidates. The powers still remain with the branches and the structures of the African National Congress. They nominate. The scrutiny in terms of their nomination of whether or not the people have met the criteria, they will be interviewed and pass the test through the Revolutionary Council that will actually be established. And it will take back the qualified names for voting in the National Conference of the African National Congress and all the power structures of the organization, starting with the regions. Lobbying and interest groups, the extent to which lobbying has been tolerated in the ANC has only been through conference sessions. What has been proven to be a challenge is the lobbying process engineered by clandestine factionalism which destabilizes the organization. The fact that people have got interest, the interest to stand and to be elected in the organization, it should not be a taboo. It should be allowed, and we must unban this thing of people doing things clandestine, and at the same time, the negative lobbying that include dispensing of patronage and all the dangers we have warned about in terms of the presentation above. Act number 4, Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliaments and Provincial Legislatures, Act of 2004, could be amended to regulate private sector lobbyists, be promoting a certain individual for office or for regulation, laws, policies of state. Internal lobbying of ANC members, leaders or structures to require our internal arrangements to enable ethics and code of conduct regulations be put in place to remove this practice from dark corners and possibilities of being corrupted. The perception that lobbying is prohibited creates favorable grounds for destructive factionalism and accusations of corruption or capture. Factionalism has become an integral part of the organizational culture. Its clandestine nature makes it a parallel activity that is beyond reproach. Efforts should be made at regularizing lobby or interest groups' activity within the organization. We have been dealing with these issues over 2 decades. Secretary General Kgalema Motlanthe talks about this question in our first General Council that was held in Port Elizabeth. In today's organizational renewal and design, we're no longer paying lip service to that. We must acknowledge the fact that factionalism is actually with us. And how to exercise it, it means we must deepen democracy in the African National Congress and not make it a clandestine thing and so on, whilst not undermining the principles of democratic centralism. Enhancement of information technology infrastructure, a one-stop ANC portal infrastructure we propose should be rolled out to reconnect the ANC to the people and membership. It must contain all relevant policy and other documents. It should have a page where members, cadres, and supporters can advise or express their views on various matters. It must have a team of dedicated administrators who can provide a personalized service. An informed and ideological grounded ANC cadre. This being a decade of a cadre, the National Policy Conference must reflect on the progress made so far in relation to that. There is a general confusion that is as a result of a departure from the vocabulary or lexicon of the movement. Even senior or perceived to be members of the ANC and Alliance get caught up in situations where we use neoliberal phrases is common and denials of ANC policy positions, thus the lexicon erupts. The ANC has a policy of radical economic transformation. It is ANC policy. The ANC recognizes that monopoly capital, of whatever kind or race, is not desirable and cannot be accepted as it constrains the economy from growth and radical innovation. The ANC sees free competition as key to the success of the economy and its growth towards the set targets in the National Developmental Plan. White monopoly capital in particular has been in ANC lexicon since its founding in 1912. The blurring of lines and political amnesia is mostly nefarious and ideological dissonance. Our forebears, Fikile, Sam, Anton Limbede, Tumanoke, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, individually developed the political economics analysis over the speciality of the South African question, identifying in exact words white monopoly capital as a primary political food to the movement and its people. As such, the struggle against monopoly capital is on from various fronts, including state institutions at all fronts, including the Competition Commission. But the strategy and tactics of the African National Congress from Polokwane, which is under review in this conference, talks about monopoly capital as the enemy of the National Democratic Revolution. To an extent, we characterize in the means of production, locate white monopoly capital in the historical evolution from apartheid economy to transforming that economy to in the developmental state. We make reference to that, but in our strategy, we recognize that we cannot do as a multi-class ideological organization without monopoly capital. Hence, we characterize our relationship as unity and struggle of the opposite. For us to transform the economy, we introduce BEE, which BEE, in terms of government policy, has actually benefited at most from those who hold the means of production racially over a period of time. And part of the criticism of BEE, among others, is the negative element of fronting, that it has not been what the National Democratic Revolution seeks to create, which is the new black bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie. To an extent that we can talk about African black capitalist is debatable, and the economy is still owned by the few and white monopoly capital. The extent that those who defend themselves and want to use the terminology in their Stratcom arrangement does not mean that as a liberation movement we can abandon the jargon for political expediency. We must be, however, conscious of the fact that we draw the line in what we characterize. And that makes us to be principled and understand where we are going as a movement and not abandon our lexicon simply because others want to use it to achieve narrow gains and achievements. The opening of the South African market to international business is important. Various studies on the value of black economic empowerment have placed the total value of this transaction from 1994 to 2016 on a range between 380 billion to 440 billion. The property sector in South Africa is valued over 8 trillion, inclusive of agriculture. Though our work streams in the national policy and structures is segmented into various categories for ease of reference. In this breath, organizational renewal requires that the ANC delivers on the apartheid reparations, and the decolonization of the academia, education and culture is located under that which is causing great anxieties. We further make further proposals in the review of that must take into account the current structural design of the ANC. Party constitutional structures. There is a proposal that in the organizational design, the ANC must expand the top six of the ANC in its current. So that is debatable and will be deferred to the constitutional review for debate in the structures of the movement. It didn't only come from the Youth League, but it came also from the structures who did not attach names in relation to that, and the provinces in the debating discussion. So in the organizational design, we are considering that as well. ANC Parliamentary Caucus. We're looking and proposing that the Parliamentary Caucus of the ANC, whereas we understand that it has got no power to take decisions, but it must find expression in the Constitution of the African National Congress. The Integrity Commission must also find expression in the Constitution of the ANC. It is now constituted by our elders who are supposed to summon us, but it has got no constitutional powers. It's like having the hawks without the powers to subpoena people. So we are proposing that the Integrity Commission must have the powers without subjecting itself to the will and the control of the ANC National Executive Committee or any other structure to subpoena people who are implicated in whatever thing that they are implicated on to account. And they must take decisions in relation to the account given to them on the issues that individuals have raised. In that particular context, the Integrity Commission will have the teeth and the tooth to bite in relation to the issues and whatever corruption or misgivings and ill-disciplined members of the ANC might actually face in the organization. That goes for legislative caucuses, and also we say that they must equally find expression in the Constitution and council caucuses. Like it is with the executive, the center of power must be affirmed uncategorically as the ANC. There must be no ambiguity or openness to correspondence in this regard. The ANC is the center of power in the revolution. Our system and structural design must not be conflated with neoliberal Western system of individualism politics. The ANC is diametrically and ideologically opposed to liberal politics. Our oversight, monitoring, and evaluation of the executive, parliament, legislatures, and local government council will be conducted through centralized control from the center. In conclusion, we argue that the ANC remains the leader in the process for social change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fikile. We will take questions. Just one round of questions. We won't have the second round. I'll start at the back. Maureen, Griselda. There are some of you who had asked delegates from provinces. I shall provide that in case you want to know how many delegates per province, like Sunday Times. Tabo.
Good
Please proceed,
afternoon. I'm Criselda Lewis from SABC Television News. Mr. Mbalula, you speak about, you didn't exactly say a cancer within the African National Congress of factionalism, and you've acknowledged that this afternoon. But I'd just like to get your view on my very capable colleague, Aldrin St-Pierre, did an interview with Sihle Zikalala yesterday, where he sort of seemed to threaten members of the ANC MPs on siding with the African National Congress on what we now see seems to be breaking news about this motion of no confidence being shifted from the 3rd of August to the 8th. I'd just like your take on that, because when you speak about factionalism within the African National Congress, on the sidelines of this very policy conference, you've got members of the ANC, senior members of the ANC, threatening members of MPs, ANC MPs, to side with the African National Congress, or they should simply get out.
Proceed, Mary.
Hi, good morning. Marianne Merton from Daily Maverick. It's a follow-up with regards to the changes that you're looking to make to the parliamentary caucus. What was that informed by? Because we do have a statement from the President saying that the ANC caucus in Parliament seems to be a wedge driver between the ANC at Parliament and National. if you're making the parliamentary caucus a constitutional structure, how will that work? What is the thinking around it at this point in time? And in terms of some commentary that basically that MPs will not be allowed anything except to obviously vote against the motion of no confidence in the president. How would you explain that, given the Constitutional Court case, or the ruling rather, that made quite a lot about that MPs as public representatives swear not an oath to the political party, but to the Constitution? And is that dynamic, and maybe you would see it as a contradiction, is that also part and parcel of your discussions? Thank you.
Please pass it to Putetumile Mateza. I see your hand is up. Andy Vamkulu? Oh, she spoke on your behalf.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, Mkulu.
Good afternoon. I'm Khalang Bata from Bloomberg News. My question is, you've talked about a proposal to expand the top 6 of the ANC, and you've mentioned that the Youth League raised that proposal, but they were not the only people to raise it. What were the reasons given for that expansion, and how exactly would it add to organizational renewal to have more people sitting at the top of the party leadership? And another question is, was it mainly proposed as just on the basis of the names that the Youth League gave out for their preferred top leadership of the ANC, which was beyond the top 6 that we currently have?
May I, just before you pass that, may I just remind members of the media, Fikile is not presenting the Commission's report. He is neither not presenting what is being discussed at the moment. He's presenting what he presented yesterday at the plenary. So some of the issues you ask could be the issues that are being discussed, and there's no resolution on them. Just to keep that in mind. So we're not presenting discussions from commissions. It's a presentation of the Organizational Renewal and Design discussion document, which is guiding discussions in commissions. All right? Clement? Oh.
Can I ask?
Ranjani.
Okay. My name is Ranjani Mansami from Times Media. I wanted to find out, you spoke quite at length about radical economic transformation and white monopoly capital. I wanted to find out whether there will be any discussions about how the British PR firm Bell Pottinger imposed this debate on South Africa and tried to manipulate discussions within the ANC on these issues. Thank you.
Please pass to Clement.
Thanks. Clement Manyatela from Eyewitness News. How critical is the debate on the, alleged influence on the state by private business interests? And I'll make specific reference to the Gupta family because that's what the Secretary General deals extensively with in that diagnostic report. Can we expect discussions on the Gupta family and how this alleged influence they have on the state should be dealt with in those commissions and in discussing the renewal of the organization? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Those are the last questions for today. We'll take them the second round, maybe later with Natim Tetwambax. Yeah? Ujala Skota. I'll allow one question, or SABC to ask a question. Oh, thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Comrade Zizi. Griselda, motion of no confidence. The ANC discipline in relation to the powers of members of the ANC in Parliament is very clear. They are accountable to the party structure, they are deployees, and they take their mandate from the National Executive Committee. So the National Executive Committee have debated at length the question of the motion of no confidence on the president, and that decision have been announced to you and have been announced to all members of the organization that we will not withdraw our president from Parliament, and we will not withdraw our president, in fact, from the executive. So all party members, in terms of the ANC discipline, are supposed to follow that particular position. Now, the extent to which people will be ill-disciplined, the ANC will have to apply the disciplinary procedure for those who want to use the so-called conscience to determine the voting in Parliament. If that were to occur, quite clearly, it will have been against the decisions of the African National Congress. And it is not a question of threatening people. It is a question of articulating the position of the African National Congress in relation to that matter of the withdrawal of the president. And it is not a question of intimidation. Daily Maverick, Parliament Caucus, we're not saying it must be a constitutional structure. We say that some of the things we take for granted in relation to the role of members deployed by the ANC in Parliament must find expression in the Constitution of the African National Congress. That is what is important. We don't want it to be defined as a constitutional structure with powers, but the Constitution, in terms of the amendment and the review, it must address those issues. That's what we're saying, because it is basically silent in relation to that. Amukelang, what informs the expansion of the top structure? It is the desire to basically make the ANC at the national level to respond to the question of capacity at headquarters in relation to the capacity to execute and decision making. So if you say the officials, for instance, must be 9 or 10 second deputies and all of that, it means that at the present moment, officials don't have a power to take. They defer to the National Working Committee and the National Executive Committee. So if you expand, we are addressing the question also that that structure must then redefine its powers. It must become a structure in the organization with some decision-making powers in the organization. Ranjeni Bell Pottinger, there are no holy cows in this policy conference. Yesterday, in my commission, we're discussing the role of the state, and in the role of the state in the economy, in terms of the strategy and tactics, we were basically analyzing some of the issues and the question of the state capture. So there are no holy cows. There's nothing that is fudged, that is put under the carpet, that is not debated. And we're addressing that question in relation to the implications of those, because of proximity to power, have sort of influenced decision-making when it comes to their business interest within government. In a capitalist mode of production that we are in, and where in which we live in an unequal society, being exposed to resources, and those resources themselves mean business for our people. It means that those who've got an advantage and their proximity next to power means that they will actually use their positioning to basically gain influence or got to be influenced one way or the other. Personally, as a minister, there are many people in the Republic who are not only ANC members, who try all the time to influence me about either the idea for tender and the idea for something in the police that, no, I've got a proposal for an app. It's business. An app to fight crime, it's business. And those people are not ANC members. So the incorruptibility means that I must understand as an executive authority that those people must follow the due process. That is fair to everybody. If SABC were to open up a bidding process for people to give their proposal on any app, it must be equal to everybody. It must not be because you are close to Minister Mbalula. It must be because you've got the capacity to make business, but you've got the capacity, and we have looked at your model that it can work for us, but out of it, you are going to be rich. That is the way it is. Now, the point that we've got is the fact that proximity next to power must not affirm those who are politically connected. The ANC is alive to that, and the implications of that are dire in relation to corruption and all of that. A ball-pottinger imposition. Those who want to be excited by that imposition, which is of ball-pottinger strategic communication strategy for whoever they are communicating with, can be excited by that. But we as the liberation movement, we understand our jargon and we know it. And the Guptas don't constitute a monopoly in South Africa. So the strategy of Pol Pottinger, if they want to defend the Guptas and say that they've got right to monopoly, they are not a monopoly in South Africa. We can debate that. And we know what is white monopoly capital. White monopoly capital are those people who are conglomerates and who command the economic heights in South Africa. And there are very few at the helm in the triangle. When the base, it is the working class and the black workers in their numbers. So we in the ANC and in our own discussion here, we are discussing the issues, some of them in the public discourse, but as to how they impact on our strategic outlook in society, whether they are objective and subjective. And there are objective consequences that we are dealing with in the current political paradigm that change from time to time. They are not static, particularly in the evolution of the economy. If you take the state of the economy where we are today, the junk status, technical recession, it's an objective reality that we are confronted with and we must respond to that. But there are subjective weaknesses that are influenced by the objective that we can change as an organization. The fact that people are factional, the ANC has got the power to change that. And that is why we're making firm proposals in organizational design about how we must respond to those particular challenges. And we learn equally from other liberation movements who have been politically annihilated. Our interest is to remain in power, but that we need to earn out of a rigorous process of understanding that power in itself is contested and it can be taken away from us. It is a myth that it is given that the ANC will remain in power forever. Whilst we strive for that, we need to correct and be a self-correcting movement to be in a position to address a whole range of issues to ensure that we remain in power, because the ANC is the hope of the people of South Africa and the continent. Now, if all these neoliberals can come into power, it will mean something for the Republic. And we are opposed to them. They can come color-coded and code themselves as any other thing, but we understand them ideologically, that they represent retrogression. They don't represent all these things that we want for the people of South Africa. They are opposed when we want to compensate our people. I mean, when we don't want, we want land to be returned to its rightful owners. They are opposed to that. And they can come and say all the other things, but we understand them. And that is why the ANC must at all times be on its toes to seek to address and entrench each hegemony within the South African politics. If we don't do that, power will slip away and it will go with the liberals. It will go with demagogues. Power will go. Power will go to those who command the economic heights in South Africa. Today, it will go with them. The ANC is a multi-ideological organization that must at all material times be alive to the reality that the majority of our people, whilst we have created the middle strata, in South Africa en masse, that middle strata can turn against us today and even forget the opportunities of democracy. And the fact that some of them have become educated and you have become the best journalist, it is because of the ANC. And the fact of the matter is that the ANC have created that opportunity. for you to be educated and to be the best. That is why we will never agree when people attack journalists in their homes. We are very soon going to arrest them. But I'll address that in a different press conference of the police, because that concerns my citizens for their right to freedom of speech. The day we allow people to march to houses of our children whilst they work in their own workplaces, that will be wrong. That is why when people were marching to the Guptas, we hit you with stun grenades, because we don't want you to do that. When people march to Solima Paila, we must hit them hard. And when they march to Peter Bruce, we must hit them hard. When you come to my house, I finish you. We can't allow that, because it is convenient to us, because we disagree. Because Black First, they say that these people are white monopoly capital. We can't allow that anarchy to go on. If it goes on, the police have got a clear instruction. Suffocate these people, because they are undermining our democratic right, and we must protect citizens against that abuse in the Republic. We can't allow that. So I'm saying that I've answered your question in terms of the Gupta family and the state capture issues. We're debating them here. We're debating them here. They are on our agenda. We started yesterday. Today we're debating organizational renewal. Yesterday we started with strategy and tactics. All issues are laid bare on the table for branches to discuss. And if you go there, if Zizi can take you there for a snapshot, you will see that there are no holy cows. There is nothing that is under the carpet. We are laying it bare, because that is the nature of our movement, to sharpen the contradiction and allow dissent in our ranks to express itself in whatever way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of the media, we will take the last round. There are a number of activities, I will inform you now, that you are also invited to attend. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So we'll take the last round. I must apologize. Putumile, she spoke on your behalf. Okay. I'll take you, Putumile. Karin. Is that Melon Guardian? And then SABC, yes. No, Ozevala Scotland.
Well, my name is Dumile from the SABC. My question is, Mr. Mbalula, I heard you say the caucus in Parliament should find its expression in the ANC constitution. There's a dichotomy here, and the dichotomy is the members of Parliament have sworn allegiance to the South African Constitution, as pronounced by the Chief Justice the other day. Are these members not going to be in contempt of the South African Constitution if they swear allegiance to the ANC Constitution? Thank you.
Aldrin St-Pierre from SABC TV News. Just a quick one, Minister, I don't know if you'd be able to answer this here. Does the ANC in Parliament have a position on whether, when the motion of confidence is debated against the President, whether the vote should be secret or whether it should be open? Final question is on the expansion of the top structures of the ANC. I just need some clarity on this. If the top structure of the ANC is a constitutional matter, how then do you start nominating for a position that doesn't currently exist in the Constitution? Thank you.
Come again?
If the top structure of the ANC, the top 6, let's call it the top 6, if the proposal is to expand it to top 7 or top 9, whatever that number is, how do you then nominate for that position when that position doesn't exist as it stands at the moment?
Oh, okay. No. Pass it, Karin.
Karin du Plessis, I'm freelancing for the Daily Maverick. I have a question about the representation at conference here. It speaks to organizational integrity. The ANC Women's League has, I think, 6 men in their delegation. So they're represented by, it's almost like being represented by a lawyer to argue your case in a policy committee or a commission. So I just want to know, is it allowed that the ANC comes here with people who represent them, that the leagues or provinces come here with people to represent them to argue their case in commissions? It speaks to organizational integrity, so hopefully you can help me on that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Minister. Warren Prince of Netwerk 24. Minister, you mentioned the issue of the Revolutionary Electoral Council. We just wanted to find out, are there any indication at this stage of when this council will be established? And if so, will its powers be applicable to the December Electoral Conference of the ANC? Thank you.
Please pass it to the chairperson of SANEF, right in the back. Otherwise, we could be guilty if we unallow him.
Thank you very much, Mahlatsi Gallants from News 24. It also relates to that electoral council. If currently you don't agree with your stalwarts and you've used words like they're filthy rich and serving other interests, who would make up that commission? What would be the criteria then of appointing people to that commission?
Which commission? We'll go there.
Thank you, Mahlatsi. Bax?
Karima was raising her hand.
Oh. No, sit down. You don't have to stand up.
You know, there is a song by a Nigerian artist, it is Erima, but whenever I sing it, I say, Karima.
No, wait. Someone was, can you pass the mic to Karima Brown?
Thank you for allowing me to ask a question. The Human Settlements Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, has called on the ANC to expel any members of the ANC implicated in and proven guilty of involvement in the Gupta Leak saga. As a senior member of the ANC, as a member of the National Executive, do you support that call, Minister Mbalula? And then just the second question around the issue of money and its influence in the ANC. Does the ANC Organisational Renewal speak to any particular set of mechanisms that will regulate how ANC people who are involved in business, who also serve in government, need to conduct themselves? We know that the ANC has long asked for a register of interest to be vested in the Secretary General's office. It's an old mechanism. I just wanted to know if it was discussed, if it was evaluated, if you know how many members who are currently business people have lodged their interest, and whether you can tell whether people are involved in conflict of interest when they propose certain discussions or policy positions, and whether it conflicts with their own business interests. Thanks.
Hajra, you are last. She's just behind you.
I thank you, Zizi. Mr. Mbalula, I think you'll concede there's a difference between a movement and a political party. Now, former President Kgalema Motlanthe tells us the reason he doesn't go to ANC NEC meetings is because the Mafikeng resolution only applied to Mandela. It doesn't apply to all former presidents. Coming out of this meeting, how do you hope that the likes of Motlanthe, the likes of a Murphy Marobe, the likes of people who used to be ANC members like Aubrey Mashitri and Ibrahim Fakir will be able to participate in the structures of the ANC at whatever level, from branch to national to conference, and feel more included as the ANC tries to be that movement that leads society?
A movement that inspires hope. Bax?
Dumile, Mateza. No, we have a party system in the Republic, and then individuals, while sworn in constitutionally in Parliament, they owe their being and mandate to the party. So the positions they represent in Parliament, they advance policies of their own political party. So it will not be in contempt, because people in relation to the voting in Parliament will express themselves in relation to carrying the mandate of the party. But that does not interrupt the status of the constitutional body like the legislature and Parliament where in which practically members express their individual, mandate in there, but at the same time consciously and forcefully taking up the mandate of the party. Other political parties, including the opposition, they've got that entrenched in their constitution. That, for instance, the DA, if you don't take their mandate up in parliament, you are subject to expulsion in the party. And it has happened in the recent past with other political parties in South Africa, even at the local government level, where their members have not voted for them, they've actually activated that rule. The vote of no confidence does not only apply in parliament, it also applies elsewhere in the local government. Mogale City, they betrayed each other there. There could be people who undermine the ANC and go to parliament and not vote for us. We're going to deal with them. Rest assured, guided by the constitution of the ANC in relation to that particular matter and the mandate they are carrying out. They will probably be doing as suicide bombers in parliament. That is, we are going there, we're gonna do it, and so on. And some have expressed their views openly to you, that they are determined to undermine the party. But the party has made it clear to them in the party caucus what is the view of the party on the issue of the withdrawal of the president. There is no way the ANC can vote with the DA on that particular matter. So we are clearly guided on that particular issue. We cannot comment on the issue of open and so on. It belongs to the speaker. The ANC have not made a determination, because we will not only be in contempt of court, but they will simply be misinterpreting the law, because the law have expressed itself on that matter. So it's on the Speaker of Parliament to make that determination. Of course. The ANC, when it has made that determination, I'm not empowered. You know that is only Kwede Mantashe who can speak on that issue. You are asking a wrong man. So I'm not running away from you, but it's a party decision, and the party line must be communicated by the SG or anyone designated to do that. But I'm just explaining to you that in terms of the law that has been undertaken on the issue, the matter, it is very clear the Speaker is dealing with that, and it is in the hands of the Speaker. So the Speaker has asked political parties to make submission. The ANC will be party to those who make submission. And when that submission is made, either the Chief Whip or the Secretary General will make that announcement. I think you asked the question of how do we nominate SABC? How do we nominate? No, you must concentrate, because last time you said I said things I didn't say. So you see, you ask a question. I want you to refresh me on your second question.
No, it's the question. You nominate, and there are no positions.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. So what it means is that constitutional amendments are made before the election at the conference. So the constitutional review will take the proposals from our review committee as issues that have got constitutional implications. They will mull over them. And then there is a particular percentage you need to amend the constitution. So if 2/3 of the ANC conference agrees that we must have 9, and it comes from branches properly processed in terms of the guidelines on the amendment of the ANC constitution, it will pass. So the people who are nominated will make it in that nomination in relation to the amendment that has been agreed between branches, from the branches to the province, regions, and then to the conference. So 2/3 of the conference can pass that amendment, and nomination will be done. Women's League reps, the ANC give reps, we give each structure and province and the Youth League and the Women's League are recognized as provinces. So they've got a right to have, to constitute their own delegation. So if in their delegation they put men, I don't know is whether to advance gender struggles, or it could be, because gender struggles does not only mean men, does not only mean women, it means also equally men. And the problem is that in South Africa, when we talk about gender balance and gender struggles, we only think about women. So there are men who are part of the Gender Commission, not gender commission, and there are men who are part and parcel of the gender struggles. That is how it must be constituted. So the Women's League is dynamic. I'm not talking to them in relation to that matter. They can speak for themselves. I think they are here in the conference. Zizi can organize you for them. If they've got 6 delegates who are men, which I'm not privy to, but it is their right, and they can justify it in whatever way. But you can ask them that particular question, why they did that. A Revolutionary Council will be implemented if it is adopted by conference in the context of organizational renewal immediately after conference. It will not be implemented now. But one of the things that are urgent in relation to the executive of the ANC, in this conference of December we are going in, the National Executive Committee in outlining guidelines for members to contest, they can outline guidelines in relation to the question of leadership, how it must be handled. So it doesn't need to wait for the next conference. But in the next conference, we will have actually taken a resolution on that. But the NEC can propose proposals on how to handle the question of leadership issue currently. Because for real, we see people are campaigning. So we must allow them to campaign. But campaign involves money. But people could be using money illegally at the present moment. If they campaign openly, it means we must know how much do they have to campaign and where do they get that money that they give to people when they campaign. Those are implications that we need to look at, because the traditions of the ANC in terms of campaigning, it is not allowed that as a person nominated, you can go all out and motivate yourself. That right is with the branches. So in the guidelines post this policy conference to handle issues of leadership, it is going to be an issue that the NEC have got to look at as to how we handle that particular matter, because very soon the nomination process is going to start and people will be nominated across the branches and all of that, and there's going to be discussions on the acceptability and the quality of those who are actually standing. So that's what is going to happen. Who constitute the Revolutionary Electoral Council? We said that the Revolutionary Council must be constituted by those who have retired from any interest to stand in a leadership role in the ANC. It must not necessarily be people who are veterans, because veterans also, they need capacity to run these committees. Because if you don't have capable people, that the Revolutionary Council will collapse. Because people are old and are aging. So we need capable people who are ANC members bona fide, who are going to process this issue of interest, to be able to call in members who are nominated and listen to them and interview them. Why do you think that and they evaluate them in relation to the eye of the needle? We don't have to use many documents. We use in the eye of the needle. The ANC constitution says you must have how many years to stand in a particular structure, so that the people who stand in the National Executive Committee have gone through the eye of the needle indeed, in relation to their impeccable credentials in the organization. And the Revolutionary Council will actually look at that. So we don't want people who are affirmed by factions, who make it simply because a faction is powerful, but that person does not have impeccable credentials to lead the African National Congress. The people involved in business, First, let me deal with the question of the movement. We understand what the movement is quite perfectly so, and we agree with you that the movement is beyond narrow conceptualization of what is an organization. It involves all streams of society, but that movement that we lead is progressive. And then ideologically, it is a movement that wants a particular outlook of the world globally. It is anti-imperialist and it is pro-poor, but equally that movement is multi-ideological. And that is the movement led by the ANC. And that movement is neither capitalist nor socialist. It is a movement of revolutionary democrats in the country. So to an extent that elements of that movement break away from time to time and come back, it does not mean that the ANC must give up on them. There are people who are necessarily not card-carrying members, but have aligned themselves with this ideology. And they criticize us from time to time that we're veered away from values of what constitutes this movement. And some of them have expressed themselves in different ways. And that is the individuals like Mashike. I don't know whether he supports that movement. But there is equally another movement that is very, very conservative and reactionary. And many people who write in that camp don't want to admit for what they constitute and who they are and what they represent. But debate, for it not to be suffocated in the context of national debate in society, we don't start it by labeling. We engage on why the ANC on the economy will want this outlook, and you wouldn't want that. There are people who don't believe in our policies of affirmative action. They don't believe in what we do in terms of the wage bill in the country and the resolutions we have passed now. There are people who don't agree with this question of, the fast-growing middle strata, and in particular, which is black, and what is called clever blacks by yourselves in your own characterization. It's not my language. But, and those clever blacks have actually come out of the system that has actually made it possible for it to grow to be what it is. So I agree that the ANC must be in a position to constantly engage and win those people over in terms of the thinking. So that is why we don't subscribe to the notion of not engaging, even if we know that we don't agree. The fact of the matter is that we believe in the question that is called national debate. What is the national debate in South Africa today? It's an important element of us to characterize that national debate and the elements of it. And some of our people who basically think in this direction, that is led by the ANC, who have actually veered away. And I agree with you that you have that movement at the present moment depleted. But even the vanguard leadership role of that movement that is led by the ANC, to an extent that vanguard role is diminishing. It does not mean that the ANC must accept that, but it will actually acknowledge that it must end that role in society. So we must replenish at all times and make a proper analysis, which is what we're doing here in this conference. Part of the debate we are having is a debate in the battle of ideas and the political ideological outlook of the South African society. And where are we in relation to that positioning? So we're looking at all elements in relation to that question. Call for state capture, Karima. Regulating people involved in business. Yeah. Yes, the ANC is looking into that question. In terms of its members, we need to regulate that. Those who are in leadership positions. We can't say to society, arrest and investigate all those who've got questionable wealth, and members of the ANC are excluded from that. It cannot be. It starts with us first, because we are a leading party. We are in government. Society expects us to lead by example. So the ANC must be able to give account of the personal wealth of individuals. You know, now in Parliament, you are even asked to, we are being asked to declare everything. The only thing left is if you've got concubines, it's not what we are supposed to declare. But we declare everything. No, I'm just making an example. Concubines, by the way, does not mean only a man. It also means a woman. You see, a woman can have a staff nyana outside. So the point I'm raising is that we declare everything. I'm sure even that one is coming. Must be declared. We must declare everything, and we declare. So the ANC in the current must know when Zizi is not only an employee, occupies a position of importance. We are paying you this much. What is your extra income to give an account for what you've got? We need to know that. It is very painful for those who are opposed to it, but it makes us to move straight. It doesn't mean that members of the ANC must not be engaged. They should not be engaged in business activities. But it means we must understand why people are having the things that they have, so that our members are not caught up. We are not leading members who are caught up in corruption and illegal activities. If you look at Instagram, where people like to advertise themselves, you can audit them and check them. And we have checked them in the police. And some of them, when we check them, sorry to disclose that to you, but when we check some of them, we got to them and we found that they are criminals. In fact, the wealth that they are displaying there on Instagram is a fake wealth. It's a wealth of criminality. It's unaccounted for. But others, when we check them, we realize that no, he's got a tender of 40 million. Oh, that's why he's got this, and so on. Those who display cars and all of that, we find them there. So they must continue to display, because when you've got something nice, you want it to be known, please do it. But as long as it is legal, that is what is important. So this process actually also allowed the ANC in the organizational renewal to be ahead in terms of the steps of ensuring that its own members are actually accountable to the organization, so that Comrade Zizi and the SG, when they come to see you and you ask them questions of people who've got questionable wealth, you must know where they get that wealth from. Thank you.
No, I'll have problems if I don't give. Kalana, you had.
Thank you very much. Lukhanya Khalata from the SABC. Mr. Mbalula, I just want to understand something. You've characterized MPs who may possibly want to vote with opposition in the motion of no confidence as suicide bombers. Basically that they are there and they must represent the ANC. And I just want to understand, how is it then that when the president, for instance, took a decision without consulting with the ANC to reshuffle cabinet, right? He took a decision based on his conscience, and yet we've seen no action towards him, yet he's done something outside of the ANC. Yet there is a possibility that some MPs may also want to do something based on their conscience, yet there is a threat that they will be dealt with. You characterize them as suicide bombers. I just want to understand, because you've also said that there's no holy cows in the ANC, yet what we're seeing is that there are holy cows. The president makes a decision without consulting anybody in the ANC and nothing happens. MPs may vote with the opposition, and yet there's a threat that they will be dealt with. I just need to understand, sir. Thanks very much.
The last hand.
Let me answer that question before I forget what I want to say. The ANC resolution of Mangaung says that the president will exercise his prerogative after consultation. And that's what he did. Now, the extent that there was dissent, there was agreement amongst them to express that dissent. But there was consultation. And that in consultation included other names that were finally not agreed. That president wanted them to be members of cabinet in the reshuffle, and then following the advice he got, he did not go ahead with those particular names. After that, the NWC reflected on the matter, and the SG came to address you, and then you gave him a new name that he has montaged from the position that he holds on the reshuffle of the president have basically undertaken. And there was action after reflecting on the matter. Up until a few months ago, we had a full-blown discussion where members of the National Executive Committee, about 30, and opposed to 70 so people, came there and said that the president must actually be withdrawn for the issue of cabinet reshuffle and so on. So that motion was defeated, and that was communicated to structures. So members of the ANC have got no right to represent their jackets in parliament. They represent the organization. They are suicide bombers. A suicide bomber is somebody who dies for an ideology, whether it is wrong or right, he dies for it, or she dies for it. So I can go to parliament knowing very well I've signed an expulsion note from the ANC and say, anyway, I'm gonna do it. It's suicide. It's political suicide. You decide that, no, today is my day, I'm gone. And I'm making that resolution with myself that I'm leaving this party. They will not be the first. Even though it is not easy for people to leave the party or to be expelled, I don't believe in that personally as a Democrat. That's why I defended Julius Malema in the ANC. And I stood by that on my own, in terms of my own conscience to the end. And I was defeated, and he was expelled. So the question I'm saying to you is that Chris Hani remind us that in the movement, difficult decisions are taken even if you don't agree with them. And one such was the suspension of the armed struggle. He was not happy. He was somewhere in Transkei. Here they wake up in the morning, they announce Groteskir Minute and the suspension of the armed struggle. Mandela shaking hands with de Klerk. All our forces on the ground had a displeasure of that. But you subject yourself to the line. And if you were right by history, that you were right in terms of that descending view, history will judge you. But in the ANC, we don't work like that. We don't work like that, where in which individuals have got a right of their own that they can brandish. It is something new in this democracy and in the ANC. It is something new. We are a party, we are a structure, we are not a beer hall. In a beer hall, there's nobody who listens to anyone. You all dance differently, and then you all drink at different pace, you all drink different labels. There are those who can afford very expensive malt, there are those who cannot afford. We are not running a beer hall, we are running an organization which is accountable to members. And the point that has been raised, which is linked to that, is that it is unfortunate some of our rank and file and our former leaders have taken the position in the organization that they've taken. But that will never diminish their role in history for who they are. But the self-respect that they must have for this movement is that there is an organization that is running. They may disagree with that organization. It means that they must continue to contribute to that organization. At some point, we elected a very weak leadership under Nelson Mandela in that Mangaung that we came from. and all the leaders of the ANC were out. We rectified that in Fikile. We learned from our mistakes, and the mistakes we've got today and the things that we see, they will be rectified. And we're doing exactly that with this policy conference up until the national conference. There are things that we are addressing. When we address the questions that we are addressing before us in the organization, we will never allow our organization and the African National Congress to distract and by imposition from others. The ANC has survived difficult times, and this moment is difficult. And we can never say that it is not difficult, but one thing we will never do is not to allow the ANC to self-destruct. Oliver Tambo could prevent that in Morogoro. We must prevent that today. Yes, Chief, you are the last person.
Samgelo Masayo from Chakranda FM. I've got two questions for you. One question, first one, is the ANC not self-destructing currently? From the Mangaung conference in Polokwane, you had 2 breakaway parties. One of those breakaway parties has cost you 3 metros, Johannesburg, Tshwane, Nelson Mandela Bay. You are saying that ANC MPs cannot vote with their conscience. Does the ANC come first before the country, or the country comes first before the ANC? Which is which? Thank you.
Thank you. That was your last question, Max.
Yeah, well, the country comes first to all of us. And that is where we need to unite as the opposition leaders and the ANC. There are issues that come first in terms of the country. But the choice of who leads, it is determined in our party electoral system by the party that wins the majority. And that we don't share with the opposition. It will be destructive for the ANC to allow the opposition, for its own agenda and self-interest, to make a determination of what must happen to the African National Congress. We cannot make a determination for any political party in this country what must happen to it and so on. So self-destruction will mean that we are basically towing the line of the opposition. And the opposition that has portrayed itself as the super revolutionary and have even at some point on the basis of populism abandoned some of its policies simply because of the adventurism of winning political power, the possibility of winning political power in 2019. And it has been posturing on a whole range of issues, including social security net policies, which we know they don't agree with, but all of a sudden, the opposition have said that they will dish out social grants to our people, which is a position of the ANC, simply because they are the opposition, and at any given point when there is criticism, they can then occupy that particular space. So we are for the country, but we equally have got self-interest. There's nobody who doesn't have self-interest. Everybody has got self-interest. And let us not parade as though we see demagogues parading themselves for whatever reason as the messiahs of our society. Fine and good, the ANC must do its job. It must look at itself robustly and address itself to the challenges that it is faced with. And that is what is important. So it is not self-destructing. It will be self-destructing if the ANC were to kowtow everything that is set by the opposition in the country. There are difficult things that we have survived which the opposition doesn't like. And the question of what happened in the metros, we know. And we are alive to that. And we're working very hard in relation to those weaknesses that have actually arisen. And we have made a proper examination to address those questions that have actually arisen there. And your own account of why the ANC lost in the metros is President Zuma. And that is what we have said to society. And that is what the opposition wants society to believe. That the biggest element of the ANC loss, and many of our detractors, they say it is Zuma, remove Zuma, and then we'll be one. My money will never be with us on the question of affirmative action. I don't know what the EFF stands for, except for the land question, which we can find each other along the way in relation to the land question. But my man will never agree with us. Even if we can remove President Zuma, he will never agree with us on affirmative action. He will never agree with us that it is time to radicalize in the economy. He must not be a hypocrite. He's misleading our people to say that the Guptas, for whatever misfortunes they have in our society, they constitute monopoly. They don't. And we don't defend them. We don't defend them. We don't defend their deeds. What they do in our society, we are hard in relation to what they stand for and what they've actually done or what they are doing. He will never agree with us. He is saying Zuma must go for a bigger political agenda that will take the ANC out of power. President Zuma will leave the ANC in December. There's no issue about that. So the question before us is that if we agree, and they are the holy cows that they are, let's agree on the program of radical economic transformation, which will exist long after President Zuma has gone to the grave. What are we supposed to do to give out to our people and respond to the challenges of poverty, unemployment that we are faced with in South Africa? What are we supposed to do? We who regard ourselves as the most radical, we are proposing in this conference that there must be land redistribution without compensation and without land grabbing in the context of the law. And some here disagree with us on that position. That is the nature of the ANC, because we think we have reached a point where we've got to make a sacrifice. We don't have to be like Zim. After 10 years, we go for land grab. We must not land grab. If the land program is not moving at the pace that it is supposed to, irrespective of the policies that we have put in place, it requires us to review. And that is the fundamental program of the African National Congress and the National Democratic Revolution. Anybody can be reviewed, can be removed from position. It's very easy to some. What did it cost us to remove President Mbeki? It cost us dear. It cost us cope. Terali Kota, as much as I've never believed in him from the scratch, but I didn't think that he would leave the ANC. The day he left, I was in the bush, right? If you understand. Yeah, I was shocked. The day Sam Shilowa left, I was shocked. I mean, if you talk about Sam Shilowa, he's not a minnow. He's a serious man who can think. That's why that coup collapsed after he had left. Because Terra, I know him. Everything will collapse in his hands. And that is why in the election campaign, as the man who was involved in that campaign, Sam Shilowa was my biggest problem. You see, so those are the secrets in the book that is coming. So I'm saying to you that we didn't take it easy at that time when we allowed President Mbeki to leave, and he left when he was asked by the NEC. The NEC was unanimous, I'm told, except for myself, who was in the bush and not agreeing with the decision. President Zuma, Gwede and Tash are the only ones who were disagreeing with the NEC. Maybe Joel Nechitenze, I don't know. But the rest were unanimous in their decision that the president must go. It was not 30 people. It was the whole NEC that the president must go. And Gwede had to be the bearer of bad news to go and tell the president that go. And the president did not argue with him. He said, okay, I'm going, fine. He left. But there were people who did not agree with that, and they gave us a love letter that they call it is a divorce through Terali Kota. And that movement that they were trying, which collapsed, it included DA, UDM, everybody. They were dancing like Casey and Jojo there at Santon Convention Center. They were dancing there and then taking away the country. And it was going, trust me. And the point is that we had to dig deep in our reserve to challenge that movement. And we dropped. We were at 65%. So the decision you take on a leader is not easy. Even my man could not take a decision on Helen Zille. He had to take a partial decision, make me look good, South Africa. I've at least done something. But it was not. The real decision he was supposed to take to be tested, that is a man. and is a man who's leading a party, not through some backdoor arrangement. He should have said, go away, step down even in government. No two-way process. He couldn't do it. Let them not play politics on us. We are a liberation movement. Let them not. We are a liberation movement that understands where it is going, that understands its weaknesses and its challenges, and we must rise, and we will rise to the occasion. It's not going to be easy, but we will rise. It's not going to be easy in 2019, but we will rise. And we are not arrogant. We will defend power, and we will do everything in our means to defend the African National Congress, and we will rise to the occasion. That's what we will do. And what has happened in Gauteng and everywhere else, it has not only frightened us, it has made us to think very hard about what happened there. But the overall account that is exploited by our opponents, that our president is the only account for what has actually happened in those metros, it is not entirely the outlook of what happened, and that we must take an immediate decision that as though when the president goes, everything will be done. It will not be done. They will never agree with us on the things we want. If they agree with us and they want President Zuma to go, there is a package. Agree with radical economic transformation so that we see you have actually changed. Don't tell us slogans about you have been a member of the ANC and you loved Nelson Mandela. Everybody loved Nelson Mandela. Everybody loved Nelson Mandela. Tell us about the program and the content and the ideological outlook of what goes with Mandela. That is fundamental to our program. Thank you very much.
The following announcements. Firstly, you are invited to join the Deputy President. You will do a walkabout at the exhibition center. You follow Mlimandela. Mlimandela is right at the back. You are invited now at 2. At 3, you are invited back here with Natim Teto. Those who want credentials, you may come to me. I'll give you the credentials, delegates, provinces. Thank you.